Now, I don't know about your week, but I got to tell you, mine has been a blur of activities centered around watching my daughter take the oath of office to be the 47th governor of Arkansas. Now, for me, it really sank in when I was sitting in the House chamber and the oath was administered, and I realized that she had just assumed an office that I had the privilege of serving for almost 11 years as the 44th governor. There was a whirlwind of inaugural activities for several days, culminating in the inaugural ball on Tuesday night. But what a surreal experience. I would say it's a genuine affirmation to see an offspring decide to continue in the family business, but it isn't the family's business. It's the people's business. It really is. And I'm proud of her because she's off to a great start. And on her very first day, she signed executive orders to ban teaching critical race theory in public schools. If you're not familiar with it, it's a crazy nonsense philosophy that teaches that America is bad and inherently racist. She also signed an executive order that prohibited the use of the non-word Latinx that refers to Hispanics or Latinos. Now, she did it in part because they hate the word more than anybody. And she put a hiring and pay freeze on state government to get budget and personnel under control. Well, I've been asked probably 1,000 times if I'm proud of her. The obvious answer is, of course, yes. But look, I'm proud of all three of my children equally. It's just that for whatever reason, she's chosen to take on a job that'll put her every word and every move under intense public scrutiny. She'll do well. And while my friend Sean Hannity tells me every time I talk to him that she'll be a much better governor than me, my honest response is, I sure hope he's right. I really do. Nothing would please me more. Now, while that story occupied my time and focus, it was revealed this week that President Biden had kept some classified documents that ended up at some nebulous think tank at the University of Pennsylvania called the Penn Biden Center, as well as in his personal garage next to his Corvette. You remember this summer when 27 heavily armed FBI agents swooped in on Mar-a-Lago, former President Trump's home, and they grabbed documents that the Biden administration and the Attorney General thought were so sensitive that they had to be rounded up right now. They even went through Melania's clothes closets, their son Barron's room, and all of the former president's personal spaces, including taking his passport. And then for a while, they denied they'd even done it till they had to hand it back to him. There were no pre-dawn raids on President Biden's personal property at his Delaware beach house by armed FBI agents. No rummaging through Jill Biden's clothes. Heck, they still don't seem at all interested in the contents of Hunter's laptop, which confirmed not only rampant drug use and sordid activity with prostitutes, but which revealed details of the shady business deals that Hunter had with Russian oligarchs and Communist Chinese Party officials, in which Joe Biden, now the president, is said to be getting his cut of 10% as the big guy. The documents that Biden had illegally kept were actually discovered November the 2nd. Now, that date's important because that was 6 days before the midterm election. But this whole bit of information was kept under wraps and not disclosed until President Biden was far away in Mexico for meetings just this last week. Attorney General Merrick Garland even had the unmitigated gall to announce a special prosecutor to look into Trump's documents at the very time that he already knew that President Biden had kept classified documents from his time as vice president. Unlike President Trump, Joe Biden, as vice president, did not have the authority to declassify any of the documents. Merrick Garland appointed a special prosecutor to look into Biden's issues, but only after several additional sets of illegally kept documents kept turning up this week. I'll tell you, it's so blatantly bad that even CNN and MSNBC are covering the story. That's how bad it is. which is proof again that there are two standards of justice operating in this country right now, one for Joe Biden and the Democrats in power, and a completely different standard applied to conservatives. I think it's time for Merrick Garland to admit he's not impartial enough to be Attorney General, and he ought to resign. At the very least, he needs to end the partisan and hate-filled witch hunt on former President Trump, the taking of the House by the Republicans. I will say this, it's a good start. But until we get a change in the Senate and the White House, we might not see the kind of accountability that we must have. And we need it now. Well, we've got a great lineup for you tonight. Kevin Sorbo is going to be talking about a new Left Behind movie. Arizona gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake is here in our studio as well. And a whole lot more. It's a great show, so don't you dare go away. We'll be right back.
MikeHuckabee.com and sign up for his free newsletter and follow Mike Huckabee on Twitter.
Oh yeah, welcome back. On January the 26th, the highly anticipated new installment in the Left Behind movie series opens in theaters all over the country through Fathom Events. I want you to welcome back to the show the director and the star of Left Behind, The Rise of the Antichrist, Kevin Sorbo. I want you over on the couch. That is, unless you want to interview me.
No, I'll interview you later.
Now, what are you doing, by the way?
I'm videotaping. I'm going to give you a big plug in my social media.
I love this.
By the way, I'm wearing my Twitter jacket for those.
That's pretty cool.
For those who follow me on Twitter, those are actually my tweets in there.
I looked in there. He's not kidding. They really are. I've never seen anything so cool.
That's good, fun stuff.
You found a guy, you said in Estonia.
He's in Estonia. He's awesome. His name's Dimitri, and he does great. I was filming a documentary in Israel this past May.
Yeah.
He flew down to fit me.
That's incredible.
He did like 5 suits. I got a Hercules one, Andromeda one, and all my faith-based movies one.
I think now you'd need to get a Huckabee show one so that all of the interior is scenes from you being on the show.
Got to bring me back a couple more times. We'll get more variety of pants and suits and stuff like that.
I got to tell you, I had a chance to watch a screener of the new film, Left Behind, The Rise of the Antichrist. I really, really liked it. And I'm going to tell you something. People, when they see this, they're going to think that they're watching something that is happening right now.
It is like in real time. There's no question. The writers did a great job. Paul Alon and Jessica Parker did such an amazing job on this. They're the ones, it's Cloud 10 based in Toronto. They've owned the rights to the books. If you guys have read the Left Behind books, they owned for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
They've been making movies on it. This is our first movie in 8 years. And we made it very modern day. So you recognize, as you said, quite a few things that is going on in today's world, in our crazy world. And you're going to feel like the rapture's got to be pretty close, I think.
But you know what I think you did? You told this story of things that are happening in our world, but it didn't seem like that it was outlandish. It did not come across as being cheesy, not at all. In fact, I found myself saying, man, this is like today's headlines.
Yeah. We got a great plug from Jerry Jenkins, one of the writers. He said it's the best Left Behind movie he's ever seen.
I think it is.
Yeah,
I think it's a good reason for people to say, no, if you've seen them all, you have to see it because you're in the series. But if you haven't seen any of them, this is a standalone. You don't have to have seen the other ones for this to make complete sense.
No, please go to leftbehindmovie.com. Leftbehindmovie.com shows you the trailer of the movie. It shows you the theaters near you. Just plug in your zip code, and January 26th, we open. So please, we need the support to make these things out there, because Hollywood is winning the culture battle, as you know. We're trying to fight back and do movies that got faith, love, hope, redemption, and laughter. I'm going to keep making those kind of movies. So.
And you directed this as well as starred in it?
I did.
You brought just a little clip from the film. Why don't you set it up and tell us what we're about to see?
Well, it's interesting. My character, I play Rayford Steele, if you guys know the books, the pilot in there. Nicolas Cage did the movie 8 years ago. I took over for Nicolas, because who needs him? And and so this scene deals with, it's 6 months after the rapture. And the world is, you got people that are denying it happened. You got people trying to explain why it happened. You got other people, like my character, trying to find out why my wife, who was trying to tell me to follow Jesus all my life and God, I'm following her trail. I go to the church. I run into the pastor. The pastor was left behind. And this is
not a good sign, by the way.
Oh, I know. But I don't think I'll be surprised in a lot of the woke world that's taken over churches today, but that's another conversation. I see him in there, we're having a conversation, I'm in his office now, and I'm trying to make a timeline for what's happening, and this is where the scene takes place.
And you know what else you find out on that day?
What?
Who the Antichrist is. He's the one that confirms the treaty. Until then, his identity is anybody's guess.
So then, who is this Antichrist? I mean, is it Satan?
Not exactly. The Antichrist is Satan's counterfeit Jesus. He's sent here to lie and deceive. He'll say one thing and then he'll, forget it. I can't do this.
What do you mean?
Who am I to tell you what to believe?
But you know this stuff.
I never believed it. None of it. I talked about God all the time, but I guess I was just one of those false teachers that the Bible says will show up in the last days.
I thought that was a very powerful way to present that there were people who have pretended to believe.
Sure.
And there's going to be a separating point.
Yeah.
You directed this as well as
I did.
the starring role. How hard is it to direct the movie you're in?
You know, I actually started directing back in the Hercules years, so I've been doing it for a while now, and I love it. I mean, people say you got to choose one or the other. I'll still pick acting because I love to act, but it was fun, and I had a great cast, a great crew. I mean, we've got Neil McDonough in here, we got Corbin Burnson, we got Ben Chase, my wife, my son is in it, Braden.
Who was great in it, by the way.
He did a great job in it.
I remember from a few years back, and I saw him, and at first I didn't recognize him. I said, my gosh, that's Braden.
Yeah.
That kid's taller than you are.
Well, he's 6'5" now.
Yes.
I know, I'm 6'3", and both my boys are taller than me now, so.
But it's very well done, and I think one of the things people will recognize, some major Hollywood actors that are in it, you just mentioned a few, but they carry the film very convincingly.
Yep.
What do you hope people get from it?
I hope that it motivates people to actually go read the Bible again, maybe read the book Revelation, because I remember reading as a 12-year-old kid. And my pastor back at the time recommended it to us in our confirmation class because he said, if you read that book, it'll scare the hell out of you. So I thought that was pretty good. And so when I read as a kid, it was like blew me away. Then as I've gotten older reading it, it's an amazing book. And I hope people will maybe, compare it to what's going on in today's world with what that chapter talks about right now.
That'll scare them.
Yeah.
Newspaper one hand, Bible in the other. Yeah. It's pretty obvious that something's going on here, and a lot of it was predicted. But I just want to tell you, I thought it was brilliant the way you handled it. Why is it so important that people go to the theater to watch this film?
Like I said, I think it's a wake-up call, and I hope people will support it. Because the biggest thing we're battling right now, and I think, is that, the culture is run by Hollywood and the mainstream media.
Yeah.
And Andrew Breitbart said it first that I heard of, that politics runs downstream from culture. And you see what Hollywood's putting out there. You see the type of movies they're putting out, the type of TV shows they're putting out, and the agenda that they're forcing on us. Like I said, I want to do movies that are more uplifting. I used to get stopped all the time because of Hercules or Andromeda. I get stopped all the time now and say, please make more movies like God's Not Dead, Soul Surfer, and Let There Be Light. And I'm going to keep doing that because I love doing it as well. I feel this is my calling. This is my way of trying to harvest, because I get people coming up to me and say, I became a Christian because of your movies. Wow. And that just is amazing to me.
Got to make you feel good. Left Behind, The Rise of the Antichrist opens in theaters on January the 26th. Please head to Huckabee.tv. We will help you connect directly to get tickets through Fathom Events so you can make sure you go to that. And we have all kinds of ways to connect you at Huckabee.tv to the projects Kevin is involved with. Keith, what do we have coming up? Keith is not there. Keith is gone. Kevin, I
mean we're left behind? And Keith
I guess. Let me tell you something. If Keith is gone and we're here, something is really messed up. It's really, really messed up. Maybe you can tell us what we have coming up next.
That's why you gave me a microphone.
Yeah, that's it.
So Mike talks politics and elections with Kari Lake, one of my favorites, next on Huckabee.
Kari Lake is a former Arizona gubernatorial candidate who was no stranger to the spotlight when she started up her campaign. She spent decades in the mainstream news business as anchor of a network affiliate TV station before leaving it all behind to try to fix the state she loves. The race was decided by about half a percentage point, 17,000 votes. But it may not be the total end of the story. Please welcome to our show in Nashville, Kari Lake. You've got fans here.
Oh my gosh, you get this adoration every night?
I don't get it, but my guests do.
Oh,
they don't like me,
so
but
much.
they love the people that we bring to the theater.
How
That's
many
the thing.
Arizonans do we have out there? Any?
We got some Arizona people?
Hello.
Ah.
I see them over there.
You know what they're doing? They're all moving to Tennessee, I think.
Well, I'll tell you
They're
what.
so frustrated with this election. We're all frustrated with this.
Arizona's a red state. We're a conservative state. And to watch our elections be taken like this, and that's why I'm still fighting, because I know what I saw on the campaign trail. We saw crowds like this every single day, and the people are so excited, and we want to keep our state sane. And I ran against somebody who didn't even get out of her basement.
Yeah.
So we know funny business when we see it, and that's why we're going to continue to fight it in the courts.
It was one of the races that I looked at and followed. And first of all, I'm not just saying because you were here. I've said this to you before. I thought you were the most articulate, forceful candidate that I saw in the entire election cycle.
Thank you so much.
You were a phenomenal candidate. The way that you dealt with the press was so impressive. You weren't hateful, but you were as good as my daughter in handling the press, and that's saying
she's
something
good
for me.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I learned a thing or two from Sarah Huckabee. Okay, she really knew how to handle it, and they can be so nasty.
Yeah.
I used to get so upset watching them handle your daughter.
Yeah.
Rude, just rude people. And because I worked 30 years in the media, I know their tricks. And one thing I started doing early on in the campaign, I thought, you know what? I'm going to put the camera on them. And so we would do an interview with them, and we would put the camera and the microphone. They would ask a stupid question. They would ask a nasty question, and we would put that out all over the internet and embarrass them. And I'll tell you what, by the end of the campaign, Governor, they started behaving.
So I'm watching this whole race. I'm thinking, well, there's one race I'm sure of, and that's Kari Lake is going to be governor of Arizona. And, you know, we kind of go to bed that night thinking it's all going to go that way. So help us understand what did, in fact, happen.
Well, in Arizona, we vote for a month, and then we count votes for 2 weeks until we get the outcome that they want. And sadly, this is where we come to. And what happened was they knew our people were showing up on Election Day. 75% of the voters on Election Day were voting for me. And we know that because that's what the exit polling was showing.
Yeah.
And they sabotaged Election Day. On Election Day, all of a sudden, the ballot printers were printing out a 19-inch ballot on a 20-inch ballot paper, and that caused the computers to jam, and it caused people to not have their votes counted. And then we found out they added 25,000 additional votes 2 days later after Election Day. 300,000 ballots that didn't have chain of custody. We don't know where they came from.
So far, it's been a tough slog, and the courts have said, nope, we're not going to take a look at that. It's not that they said you were wrong. They didn't really do the audit. Is that a fair assessment of what's happened?
We sued and we had 10 counts, and the judge he said, I will listen to 2 counts. He gave us the 2 hardest to prove, but we did a great job proving it. I don't know if you followed it. And he ruled against us, unfortunately. So now we're in the appeals court. Good news is they've taken it based on merit, and we're gonna push it to the Arizona Supreme Court and the US Supreme Court if we have to, because we know we won. And we have to fight this. We have to fight it now.
Have the ballots been preserved?
Well, we hope they've been preserved. Unfortunately, the 2 men who run Maricopa County is a mega county, which it's also a MAGA county, by the way, but it's also a mega county, which means it's one of those massive counties where if you win that county, the whole state, it has to go that way because it's so big. 62% of our population lives in Maricopa County.
Wow.
And the 2 men running the election are both Republicans, sadly, but they ran a super PAC raising tens of thousands of dollars to defeat me. And here they are running the election. I'm on the ballot. They didn't want election deniers because I understand what happened in 2020. I did some research and I know that we had a bad election in 2020. We can't keep having stolen elections or we won't have a country much longer.
There's something, I think, troubling to all of us when a ballot for electing our leaders is about as secure as getting the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstake in the mail.
That might be more secure.
Well, it might be. You know, the chance that we're going to send it back and get $10 million. And a lot of people are scratching their head saying, is that really an effective way to carry out election integrity? And obviously it isn't.
I have a home, homeowners association, and our elections for our HOA board are more secure than the elections in Arizona. It shouldn't be that way. We need secure elections. I started voting in 1988. I'm gonna date myself here. Registered as a Republican because I was so inspired by the president of my youth, Ronald Reagan, who grew up about an hour away from me, a couple decades apart, mind you. And I was so inspired by him. I really admired him as a youngster, and he was the president of my youth. And so he inspired me to register as a Republican. Back then, you voted on Election Day, and you knew the results election night. This is not impossible. It's not brain surgery. We can do it. And we just need small, small precinct voting, and we can do it. We can count that on election night. We don't have to make it so complicated with tens of millions of dollars in machines where we don't know how the machines work. They won't show us the software. We know that the components to these machines are bought and made by our adversaries in China. I mean, imagine that. We're having China build the components to our voting tabulation machines, and they won't tell us how they work. It's fraught with fraud, and we need to fix this right now because I want my kids to have a free, I want them to live in a free America, not in communism.
I want you to stick around, Kari, because we want to talk about the things that are still going on in the country.
Okay.
And there's a lot happening in Washington. We're going to continue our conversation with Kari Lake right after the break, so don't you go away. We'll be right back.
Still ahead, a Splat Experience live painting. Later, Christian music star Tasha Layton performs on Huckabee.
And welcome back. We've been talking with the 2022 Republican nominee for the Arizona gubernatorial race, Kari Lake. Kari, glad you have stuck around, and our audience is happy about it as well.
Oh, my gosh. This is not only a good-looking audience, well-behaved, and they're really nice, too.
They're terrific people.
This is Nashville for you, right?
We pay them a fortune to sit there and be this well-behaved. That's what we do.
This is great.
This show is a whole lot of fun, but one of the things we love to do is to get into conversations with folks like you. I know you've spent your life mostly in Arizona, but obviously when you run for governor, you look at the whole country. What scares you the most that you see taking place in America? Something motivated you to leave the comfort of a wonderful job as a TV anchor to throw yourself into politics. What was it that you saw out there and you said, I got to get involved?
I walked away from my career of 30 years broadcasting as a journalist because I felt that during COVID, there was an agenda being pushed, and I really saw it strongly, and I didn't want to be part of putting out half-truths. I'm a Christian. A half-truth is a lie. A half-truth is a lie, right?
Yeah.
And there wasn't an interest to put out the full story. And I started seeing that, and I thought, I don't want to lend my heart and my mouth and my voice to this. So I walked away. An amazing thing happened. I put out a video telling the people why I was leaving. And the people started reaching out to me by the thousands saying, thank you for being honest. We appreciate you. Thank you for covering Arizona. Would you please run for office? And I thought, okay, they must think I'm crazy because I just left the world of fake news.
Yeah.
And now they want me to go into the even more corrupt world of politics. I don't know whether to love them or hate them. But
Well, I'm glad
I
you
didn't even
listened
know
to
how
them.
to run for office. I had to call the Arizona Republican office and say, AZ GOP, and say, how do you run for office?
Yeah.
Because there's not really a booklet on how to do it if you're just a citizen stepping forward.
And it should be easier to run, not harder. But you know what we're seeing? We're seeing more people like you who are not career politicians who say, here am I, Lord, send me. And I mean, I think that's one of the most positive things. We're seeing it at the school board level and city council, and it's beginning to make an impact. So if you had the magic button that you could push and change the country, what would that button do?
Oh, boy. Well, you know how I feel about the elections. We want to have fair elections, so that would be a real easy one. But I really want to see what they're doing to our kids change. I mean, we learned so much about what's happening in our schools, and they're going after our kids' minds. Our kids' minds are so malleable.
Yeah.
Think of all the things that kids believe in, and thankfully we have innocence in their minds, and then they go off to school, and the things being taught to them. So I wish we could have a really solid, positive education for our kids so that they leave high school. Back when I was a kid, you would get an education. If you wanted to get trade skill training, you could actually leave high school ready for a career. And I don't feel we're doing that well right now. So that was one of my platform ideas. I'd like to see our border become secure so that we're not having millions of people pouring across.
And you live in a border state, Arizona, so you see a lot of the impact of people just coming across. We have no idea who they are, why they're here, what they're going to do when they get here.
And so many of our problems are based on that wide open border. We have people being smuggled in, trafficked, children being trafficked into God knows what. We have drugs pouring in. Arizona is the fentanyl pipeline for America, and that is not something we're proud of. We got to stop that. You look at what fentanyl's doing, it's taking a young generation. I talked to so many moms and dads on the campaign trail. Hardest thing ever is to see a mom grab you and say, I lost my 19-year-old son. He's gone. And think of what we've accomplished in our lives from the age we were 19 or 20. And a whole generation of young people are being taken because we don't secure our border. And President Trump did a great job with that. Joe Biden came in, not to get too political, but I'm going to get political. Joe Biden,
I've never done that on the show, not me.
He
no.
came in on day one within the first 10 minutes, and he pulled back a border policy that was working brilliantly.
Yeah.
President Trump secured that border. And we need to get back to that. We need to secure the border.
We've about run out of time, but the obvious question, are we going to see Kari Lake on the ballot again, regardless of how this court challenge comes out?
Well, my number one priority is to see this court challenge through. I believe, I pray to God, and before this election happened, I had this uneasy feeling because, my opponent is in charge of the election. That's kind of crazy, right? And I just had this feeling, an uneasy feeling, and I said, God, it's all about you. He put me in this position, this fantastical journey he put me on. And I said, whatever has to happen. If it has to go one way or another, I know that I'm putting my life in your hand. This is all in your hands. I think more people needed to wake up to what's happening with our election. So I'm going to see this through. We'll take it all the way to the Supreme Court, and we'll see what happens. I don't want to start looking at Plan B, because once you take your focus off what's important, then you don't have all of your energy going into that. So I'm going to see this through, and we'll see what happens. But we have a movement in Arizona. This was not some forced thing. This was moms and dads. I called them my mama bears and papa bears and students and grandma bears. And they came out and said, we want to change in Arizona. And that movement is still as strong and powerful today as it was on November 8th. And so we're going to do what we have to do, but we're not letting it go.
I have a feeling we are not seeing the last of Kari Lake, and she'll be a spokesperson for the cause that we need in this country. Now, for our audience, if you want to keep up with Kari Lake on social media, all the links to follow her and the Kari Lake War Room are in one place for you at Huckabee.tv. Please go there and connect to Kari Lake and find out how you can keep connecting with her. Speaking of connecting, Keith is over there. He's desperately connecting to all of us to tell us what's coming up next. Keith, it's all yours. Go.
Well, get ready for an amazing performance by Splat Experience. It's straight ahead on Huckabee. Huckabee.tv and get your very own made in the USA mugs, t-shirts, and more.
All right, this next performance is going to be one of the most unusual we have ever had on the show. Since 2002, this ministry has created a unique form of artwork in nearly 1,400 live performances to bring the message of Christ to people all over the world. Now, I'm not going to try to describe it. You just have to see it. Please welcome Splat Experience.
If your love was a sunrise, it would never set. The day would carry on and on and on and never end. No. And if your love was a painting, it would be a masterpiece. Most priceless work of art this world has ever seen, has ever seen. How deep, how high, how far, how wide, it's immeasurable, I know, it's indescribable. How deep, how high, how far, how wide, it's beyond my mind, I know. Your love, your love, your love is incredible.
I love you, Jesus.
If your love was a sunrise, it would never set. The day would carry on and on and on and never end. No. And if your love was a painting, it would be a masterpiece. Most priceless work of art this world has ever seen, has ever seen. How deep, how high, how far, how wide, it's immeasurable, I know, it's indescribable. How deep, how high, how far, how wide, it's beyond my mind, I know. Your love, your love, your love far, how wide. Oh God, your love is incredible, so incredible. How deep, how high, how far, and how wide. It's immeasurable, I know, so indescribable. How deep, how high, how far, how wide. It's beyond my mind, I know. Your love is incredible. So incredible. How deep, how high, how far, and how wide. It's immeasurable, I know, so indescribable. How deep, how high, how far, how wide. It's beyond my mind, I know. Your love is incredible.
I love Jesus.
That's pretty amazing, right? Wow. Right before our eyes, he takes this black canvas, and the next thing you know, we have an amazing portrait of Jesus. I know why they now call it the Splat Experience. You know, I was sitting over there saying, I hope he doesn't sling that paint all over. Trey wanted to shake your hand. He really did, so if you'll... It's great to have you here. I think I'll wave at you. Forget it, okay? Let's pretend there's COVID everywhere.
Yeah.
Marc, this is Marc Eckel, and he is Splat Experience. Give him a big hand. I love that you had the hoodie on so that you don't get paint all over your head.
Yeah.
But what a journey. You started as an illustrator for General Motors.
Yeah, I worked in the auto industry. I was from Detroit, so I worked for Ford, Nissan, GM.
Yeah?
And
what did you do? Draw pictures of cars and stuff for the...
a lot of different creative art stuff and
Yeah?
different things.
How did this start?
You know, I've been an artist my whole life. I started really young.
Yeah?
And one day, a lady in our church came up to me and she says, Marc, I hear you're an artist. I said, yeah. She goes, how'd you like to come up with something that comes to life in front of the church? I said, sure, what do you mean? She says, we have an 8-foot canvas. You have 3 minutes. And instantly I felt regret.
Yeah.
So I kind of walked away from that. 2 years later, we were in a small country church in Indiana where we moved. And one day the pastor came up to me and he says, Marc, I hear you're an artist. How would you like to come up with something that comes to life in front of the church?
Yeah.
And I heard God say, I asked you to do this, and you walked away, and I'm asking you again. And that was in 2002. And then we started the ministry of Splat Experience there.
And you do also smaller ones. I mean, that's a pretty large thing. Yeah. But you
I got a little gift here for you. My hands are... But we do canvas prints.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Beautiful. And so these are the ones that people can get through your website. And
right. A lot of people can't have an 8-footer in their house.
Yeah.
So we decided to do smaller things. And our hopes is that people take these portraits of Jesus and they use them to talk about who Jesus is and what he's done for them and just share their faith through this image.
It's a wonderful, wonderful ministry. We're so glad to have Marc Eckel here at Splat Experience. If you'd like to learn more about Splat Experience or maybe book a performance for your church or your event or get smaller prints like the ones I'm holding for the inspiring artwork, if you go to Huckabee.tv, we're going to do something. We're going to connect you. Right now, Keith, why don't you paint us a word picture of what's still to come?
How long have I got here? Christian music, Tasha Layton talks to Mike and performs with Trey and the band. Next on Huckabee. for Fortune 500 comedian Dino Posey and country legend Clint Black.
You know, I'm just sitting here chatting with our next guest, and she brought this up, and I thought it was brilliant. She said, that guy, David Letterman, that used to be on, and he had this great band, and she said, those guys are better than the Paul Schaefer Orchestra. I agree. Trey Corley and the Music City Connection.
Thank you.
David Letterman would still be on TV if he'd had Trey Corley and the Music City Connection. Well, tonight's musical guest is one of the hottest young performers in Christian music. She first came to attention on American Idol. Since then, she's twice been named one of Billboard's top 5 female Christian artists of the year. Her debut album, How Far, released just last year. I want you to give a big welcome to Tasha Layton. Tasha, welcome.
Oh, thank you, guys. Thank you so much. You say all those nice things, and I just want to turn around like,
no,
wow.
it's you. It is you. You know,
cool.
Just hearing you in rehearsal, I'm thinking, wow, no wonder you've had such a meteoric career, and you have. You toured for a while with Katy Perry.
I did. And, you know, it was such a great experience. I think everything the Lord has called me to do now, I feel like I got a master class in a lot of those things touring with Katy. And when I stepped into what God had called me to do, I didn't have any distractions because I knew how to use in-ear monitors and, and walk on a slippery stage, you know. Like, there were so many little details that at the time I didn't know that the Lord was using that to prepare me for what he had called me to do. And, you know, I think for a lot of people out there, it's like, God, what are you doing? How are you going to bring all this together?
Yeah.
You don't always know. And, man, he's working while you're waiting.
What has the Lord done? Because there's some moments that are dark and difficult for you because we see you now with the joy and the excitement, but there have been some tough times.
Yeah, I think, you know, for years, I walked through depression, church hurt, feeling so alone, trying to create a self that wouldn't be rejected. And my hope is that everything I do, whether it's music or books or whatever, that people can feel that same freedom. I think I left Colorado going, I wish everyone could feel this free and this loved by God. If we only knew how much he loved us, it would change everything.
It would. Of course it would.
When you know what he thinks about you and how he's caring for you and working all things together for your good, even in the shut doors, you know, and the path that feels crooked, he's actually made straight. And I think we doubt that. And so I hope that through my music and the books and everything, that's really what people capture.
You obviously feel that so many things were preparation, but there came a point that God said, Tasha, I want you to sing for me my songs. And he gave you the gift to write them.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that you or he rejected the pathway, American Idol, the Katy Perry experience and all that. It was just to prepare you for what he ultimately called you to do. Did you ever think, I don't know if I want to do that? And thought about just...
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think when I got done with Katy, my time with Katy, I thought, I don't want to be an artist. And no offense to Katy, I love Katy, and she's so loyal, and I would defend her to anybody. But a lot of artists are narcissists, you know? Like, there's a reason they're famous, because they have that deep psychological need to be noticed. And so I think I bucked up against being an artist for so long. And honestly, it was my husband who sat me down and said, Tasha, you are bucking up against God's will for your life. And so I realized that I really was doing this.
I'm glad you're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, me too.
You know why?
Me
Because
too.
this entire audience and all the folks at home are about to find out why we are so excited that you are here tonight. Because we're going to have you do some music for us. Of course we are.
I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So Keith Bilbrey, while we get ready to perform, I'd like for you to tell our viewers how they can hear more of the music of Tasha Layton.
Head to Huckabee.tv for links to pre-order her book, Look What You've Done. Get her music, tour dates, and more. You can also watch an exclusive performance of her hit, How Far?